Rough. Hello, everybody, and welcome. This is my gratitude for today, and I'm lucky enough to once again grab a great friend, the Unbreakable Farmer, Warren Davies. How you going, mate?
Good, mate. How are you? Good to be back on again. So good to have another chat with you.
Welcome back to the studio. Always love having a chat with you. So yeah, thanks for your time, mate. And I love that you got the banners behind you there, because whether people certainly don't know before this, you are the Unbreakable Farm because you have a really an amazing story which says it behind you about resilience, persistence, and determination. And in this time of certainly, I think there's a lot more appreciation in the time is the virus here, where I'm looking at so much appreciation for people in the farming community and what they do, and the people bringing the food to our plates. So a big shout out there. But mate, as this is about gratitude, we're going to talk a little bit about you in a minute, but I'd like to hear 3 things that you're grateful for today.
Well, actually, I just spent 10 minutes with my grandson, so that's something that I'm really grateful for. They've just moved back from Darwin, so it's really good that they're back in our town. So my wife was just walking around town, so I just caught up with them on their little trip around town and said g'day to him. So he's 9 months old, so I'm really grateful that I had that opportunity. Grateful for my family and the support that I get every day. I'm always grateful for that. That's probably one thing that's a constant as far as my gratitude goes every day, is for my family and their support. And I think probably, even though things for me particularly, or for everyone, but for in my business as a speaker, things have changed dramatically over the last 6 to 8, whatever it is. Can't even have lost count how many weeks it is now, how long this thing's been going for. But I'm really grateful for still the opportunities that I'm getting to, like this, to share my story, and to share some strategies, and hopefully either give people the permission to be able to share their own story, or enabling them to go and seek help around whatever it is that they're facing as a challenge. And I think that really that lends nicely to my mission, and that's what my mission is to create awareness and education around mental health and well-being, particularly in rural and regional communities, but also the general population. And the second part of that mission is about inspiring conversations. By sharing stories, it's really, storytelling is a powerful thing, and then hopefully that inspires conversations around mental health, because mental illness and suicide in our community is fairly prevalent. Statistics tell us that, and we need to make it those conversations more easily had between people. So inspiring those conversations is important, and obviously enabling people to seek help in an environment that's free from stigma. So having these opportunities to be able to do this sort of stuff, even though we're in isolation, I'm really grateful for that. And it's amazing how you can negate any challenge that's thrown your way, but it might take you a little while to get your head around it, which for me it has.
Can you see my background here, mate? I'm in non-isolation. See that?
Yeah. No,
I took that one this morning, actually.
Quite
amazing. But that's really interesting, because I've done a little bit of research on gratitude, and one of the benefits of gratitude is actually benefit to mental and physical health. So, which is quite interesting. So, now the other thing I want to ask you was, you talked about storytelling. So I like a story, and I think you've got a pretty big one to share. For those who don't know you, a story that something in the past that would have been seen as a negative, but now you look back and think, well, that's great that happened, because now I'm here.
Yeah, and I think that's just my whole journey. Like becoming a speaker is something that I would never have thought that would be what I would be doing.
Would you mind sharing very briefly your story, what actually happened? I mean, it's pretty huge. So
as in my like to go into the story itself.
Pretty quickly, just the bottom, the bottom of the barrel where you were, the dark place.
Yeah, so basically I was a kid that grew up in Melbourne, and my parents decided to move to the country and become farmers. So I grew up to the age of 15 as a city boy, or as an outer suburb boy, so out in the eastern suburbs of Melbourne. Moved to the country, but growing up in the city, probably was exposed to a fair bit of bullying at school, which for anyone that knows me and sees me, like I'm 6'3" or whatever I am,
and I was pretty brave to bully you, mate.
Yeah, and I was in year 7, but was subjected to this bullying, and it had a really big effect on me. And it wasn't actually until I did the speaker course that we've both done, and sat down and unpacked those stories, and realised probably then that, even though I didn't realise it and didn't acknowledge it at the time, I was struggling with self-esteem and anxiety issues at an early age. And I think the common theme to my story is that I did nothing about them, never sought help or anything like that. And they ticked away in the background for a while. And it wasn't until I actually become a farmer and then faced some really big challenges, like a flood was the first one, started this spiral, which I now share as my mental health journey. And, it was nothing much, but similar again, didn't do anything about it, just kept, plugging away, doing my work, getting my job done kind of thing, but not really paying much attention to my own well-being. And then a few more incidents. One was a family bust up on the farm where my parents and I, we had disagreement on the farm, and we had to work out how we were going to solve it. My wife and I ended up buying them out of the farm, which added more debt, which added more stress. And but we knew where we were heading. We had a 10-year plan, what we wanted to achieve, but not about 2 years into that 10-year plan, we got hit with the millennial drought. And we were fairly solid with our plan, and we worked through the first 12 months probably unscathed. We still had plenty of water and plenty of feed, and things were tight, but it was okay. But as the drought moved into its second year, and then started to creep into its third year, we really started to struggle. And for me, that spiral could become quicker, and I got to a really dark place, and I was feeling lots of emotions, sadness, and felt like I was a failure. So that stuff from back at school, when that bullying, and that really affected my schooling and my ability to be a good student, and ended up really failing at school. So all of a sudden, when I'm faced with failing as a farmer, it was really having a big effect on my mental health, and I spiraled out of control into really, really dark places. And I think that was, I call that, there's a moment in time where I was at my lowest, and I call that moment my 2 feet of perspective, and that's basically was my rock bottom. And it was, life had given me 2 choices right at that stage. It was either I continued to spiral out of control and be, bitter and twisted at the world, or I could choose to become better. And at that moment, that's what I chose to do. But it's been a long journey trying to put those pieces back together, because not long after that moment in time, we actually lost our farm. We had to walk off our farm because we just couldn't continue incurring the debts that we were, and the drought was continuing, and we had no feed. And one of the biggest things that had affected me was my ability to be good at my job, because that's what I prided myself on as a farmer. And when I couldn't do that, I couldn't look after my cows and my farm the way that I wanted to. That had an effect on my mental health. And then when we left the farm, walked off the farm, that was probably the biggest challenge, the biggest challenge then moving forward is because when I speak, I metaphorically say I unclipped my identity off myself and left and hooked it on the front gate at the farm and left it there, because that's who I thought I was meant to be. I was meant to be Warren the farmer, and I'd now failed. And so that journey then, over the next, 15 years is, tried a few different things, but always resorted back to farming because I was good at that. Not pumping my own tyres up, but I'm good at farming. And I was managing farms and doing all that sort of stuff. And then I fell into this role as a speaker, as a mental health advocate.
Can you mind if we just wind up a sec? Because I think that's really important about, how dark it got. I mean, and if you don't want me sharing it, I know you do, that you basically chose to at one point take your own life.
Yeah, correct.
And so you've gone from, that's the depth of despair and that you were at.
Yeah. And it was a place where, my judgment was clouded and my decision making was clouded, and I just couldn't see a way out. Like it was, as I said, I felt like a failure. I was, had a lot of shame and guilt. I felt like I was letting my family down, and just thought, well, they'd be better off me not being here, and right at that moment. And I know now, and I've had conversations with lots and lots of people that have, been in a similar position, or parents of kids that have suicided, and those conversations. I know right at that moment, that in time, that it wasn't the right decision. And luckily for me, that I try not to make light of it, but I failed at that again, at that too. But luckily for me, I'm here and I'm able to share. And they're the wrong words, I know. Like there's lots of correct terminology that we should be using, but basically, it was a failed attempt, and but it also was, as I said, it gave that 2 feet of perspective moment. It gave me a whole new perspective on life, and I realised then that there was more to it than what I was. There was more to it than just the farm and all that. But even though that was where all my identity was tied up, so from then it was trying to put the pieces back together. But obviously, with a few hiccups in the way, like losing the farm, that journey's been an extended journey, I suppose, from that point onwards. But I think that's one thing that I realise now, that even though I thought I was meant to be Warren the farmer, and public speaking wasn't my forte, and I still struggle with my anxiety every time I go to speak. But what I realise now is, if your purpose is strong enough, it will overcome those challenges. And once I stand up in front of someone, or I start speaking, I know that that this is what my purpose is now. I found who I am again, and
Oh, just lost you there for a sec, mate, with the volume. So
you got me back.
Got you back there. So so would it be safe to, I suppose, to put it in a nutshell, I'm sure there are thousands and thousands of people who are grateful now that, obviously you went through that dark place, but you come out of it, and now you're doing what you're doing. So, to tie it back into the gratitude, it's like you're looking back and going, well, that happened. I believe everything happens for a reason, and now you're out there and helping people, inspiring people, and making a lot of difference to people's lives.
And I'm a strong believer in that, and I think that ties back into our current situation that we all find ourselves in now. People have lost jobs, and things aren't the same, and there might be financial troubles and that, but it doesn't define who you are. These are all external things. Who you are is inside you. All these jobs and money and all that don't really define people.
Pardon the pun, mate. We're going to go down a rabbit warren there.
but they don't define who you are. Like you know, you can be who you want to be.
Yeah.
You know.
And tell us
And
about
that's
the T-shirt. Sorry, mate.
The T-shirt. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think it's, as I said, talking about mental illness and suicide and mental health is, they can be tough conversations. So I was sitting one day being creative and trying to tie in the Unbreakable Farmer, so the tough bit, and I thought, oh, I'm not too tough to speak up, and I hope other people follow my lead and speak up about how they're feeling. So that's how I come up with the hashtag and the T-shirt. So I use it in everything I do now. So
is there anything on the back?
Nothing on the back of this one anyway.
But maybe your head or something like that.
Could do that.
Yeah, well, thanks for that, mate. Sorry, I cut you off before because I had a bit of a glitch there and I thought you'd stop. So apologies for that. So, mate, I'm going to put your details in the bottom here so people can find you, your website, and where they can look you up for your speaking and follow you, and use the hashtag not too tough to speak up.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, thanks, mate. Thanks for your time. Really appreciate it. And
absolute pleasure, mate.
Look forward to maybe one day sharing the stage with you.
Yeah, and don't forget, as I said last time, that surfing lesson, mate, that might come before the speaking gig.
Well, it's there waiting, mate. We just need the things to ease up, so the restrictions, and then we'll be right.
I think there'd be no worries, mate. I'd always be 1.5 meters away from you. I can tell you, I'd be floundering behind you.
Cool, mate. Well, thank you very much for your time.